Hello everyone and welcome to this event. My name is John. I'm here from UniTasterDays and I'm going to be hosting this UniTaster Tuesday today, where we're going to be exploring two really important areas. We're going to be looking at revision tips, and which is going to be super useful with upcoming examinations and mocks, etc. But also looking at the importance of having a positive mindset. I'm delighted to be joined today by two exceptional speakers. I'm joined by Sophie Craven, who is joining us from the University of Huddersfield. Sophie is a Schools and Colleges Liaison Officer, and I'm also joined by Farhana Begum, joining us from the University of Bradford. Farhana is a Go Higher West Yorkshire Outreach Officer. Sophie's going to open things up in just a second and look at the revision tips when it comes to exams, and then we're going to pass things over to Farhana to look at the importance of having a positive mindset. Always conscious with these events, you've tuned in to hear from our speakers, not from me. So I'll pass things straight over to Sophie Craven, joining us from the University of Huddersfield, please. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's lovely to have this opportunity to come and speak to you today and to share some tips with you to help prepare you for your revision. I'm aware that many of you will be currently preparing for mock exams, but also for final exams as well. So I do hope that my tips and advice will be useful to you at this time. So I'm just going to take you through my slideshow. The first thing that I wanted to mention is that I think revision is one of those things that brings lots of questions to mind. People worry that it's going to be hard work. For some people, it might be boring. Others at the other end of the spectrum might see it as really stressful. But it is really important to bear in mind that revision is one of those necessary things if you want to reach the success for whatever that is. For many of you listening today, that may be going on to higher education. It's important to bear in mind that revision can be manageable with help. And a lot of that comes down to planning and preparation, adopting particular tools and techniques, and also making the most use of the support that's available to you. I wanted to spend a minute or two just reflecting on revision, the importance of revision, particularly at this time during the pandemic. I think it's safe to say that revision has never been so important, particularly with exams being cancelled in the last academic year. At the moment, we are being told that in England, exams are going to go ahead in the summer, albeit a little bit delayed. However, things can change and we just don't know for 100% that that is the case. So I think it's safe to say that mock exams and coursework are perhaps more important than they have ever been. So it's really important not to rely on leaving it until the last minute because of, if it were to happen and there were to be centre assessed grades again. Also, it's important to bear in mind, we know that lots of students have had disruptions to their schooling, and a lot of people have missed time from school or college. And if that is the case, and if you have gaps in your learning and your understanding, in order to help you to revise, it is important that you can fill those gaps. So if you are worried, talk to your teachers and tutors at school. There may be revision classes, there might be catch-up classes that you can get involved in. So what does good revision look like? Well, I liked this diagram because I think it kind of helps you to visualize what revision should look like. And really what we're saying is that it's important to ramp up the work gradually. So don't delay, don't leave it till the last minute, because if you do, you are going to have a mountain to climb, and that in itself can be hugely stressful. Good revision is also about revising for short bursts, so not trying to revise for hours at a time. And it's recommended that you try to revise for about 25 minutes at a time, really intensive revision, really concentrating, then take a 5-minute break and then come back to it. It's really useful also to get yourself organised and manage your time. So think about where you're going to be revising. It's important to have a quiet workspace that's dedicated, so not in front of the TV, not in a room where other people are sitting, talking, making noise. Get your stuff organised as well. Get all your work in order so you know where things are. And having a revision timetable is immensely useful. And I'll give you later on some tips as to where you can find a tool online to create a revision timetable to make that much easier for you. So I just want to share with you some practical revision tips. It is, as I've already mentioned, it's about having a long-term plan as well as some short-term goals. So don't expect to be able to, retain information and knowledge initially when you start testing yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It is a long-term goal. As I've already mentioned, it's important to find yourself a suitable study place. I know that can be difficult, particularly at the moment where there might be lots more people at home, if parents are working from home, if you've got brothers or sisters who are being sent home from school because of self-isolation, etc. So that can be really tricky. I've already mentioned making a short bursts with your revision, with breaks as well. Make sure that you look at the syllabus, you know what it is that you're revising, and that you know what's going to be covered in the exam. Again, that might be difficult if you've missed parts of the syllabus because of coronavirus, but if you're worried about that, do talk to your tutors in school or college. It's also important that you reorganise your notes. You've probably got notes already, but you'll need to condense those down further. And I will talk a little bit in a moment about how you can go about doing that. It's important as well to check your understanding. If you don't understand something, if you're not sure of a particular concept or an idea or something that you might get tested on, then it's really hard to revise that if you don't really fully understand it. So again, speak to your tutors or your teachers in school or college. If school or college are putting on revision sessions, make the most of those. They're there to help you. So if school and college are putting those on, they might be live sessions or they might be virtual sessions online. Do go to those sessions because they will help you. Practice past papers, that's a really good way, to see what the exam looked like in previous years. So you've got an idea of the types of questions that you're going to come up against in an exam. Another one is to practice under timed conditions. That can make people feel quite stressed, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it's really about recreating those exam conditions at home so that when it comes to the real thing, you are feeling less stressed because you've had that practice. And it's important to remember, we're all individuals, so do what works best for you. I'm going to go through some of the different ways you can revise in a moment, and just find something that works for you. It doesn't have to be the same way that other people are doing it. And a really important one to mention as well, just look after yourself. Revising for exams and exams themselves can be a really stressful time in your life. But, don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's important that you take care of yourself, you take breaks, and you're kind to yourself. So organising your notes. You will already have notes, and it's a case of going back to those notes and sort of condensing those down into a more manageable form. Your notes are there to help you to understand, learn and remember. And I just wanted to mention a couple of different methods of note taking, because it might be that one of these methods suits you best. Now, they've got three strange names: linear note taking, Cornell and pattern. Now, don't worry about those names. You don't need to remember those. All you need to know is which is the one that's going to work best for you, because it might be that one of the methods is better for you than the others. So this is what they look like. Linear notes at the top of this slide are presented line by line. So they might have subheadings, they might have text underlined or in different colours. So it's pretty text heavy. And it might be that for you as a learner, that's the best way of making notes. Another type of notes is called Cornell notes, and this is more like a table format. So down the left-hand side, you'd have some notes, and then on the other side of the page, you'd have some comments. And that might be just to help you remember something. And then the third type of note taking is called pattern notes. And these are derived from mind maps, so they're much more visual. They look like diagrams, so there's much less text and much more sort of diagrams or pictures. More visual, more active. So it's about finding a form of note taking that you think works best for you. And also, you can get dynamic with your revision. It doesn't have to just be writing down endless notes into a notebook, because that can be quite tedious and quite boring. So think about what works best for you. You can use mind maps. Post-it notes are brilliant. You can get all sorts of different brightly coloured post-it notes, pictures and charts, timelines. Colour coding your notes. So if you haven't got any, get yourself a packet of different coloured highlighters. That can be really helpful to help tricky information stick. Some people find that listening to music is helpful when you're revising, so you might want to try that. But for other people, listening to music would be massively distracting. So again, it's just whatever works for you. Debating, so you might do some revision with somebody else. Obviously, that's difficult at the moment, particularly because of social distancing, but you can do that online as well. Flashcards is another way of making notes. And for some people, I find that moving around and doing exercise at the same time as revising is a good way to help that information stick. So I'll keep saying this, but it's really important to reiterate that it's really about finding some methods that work best for you. There is no right way to revise. So here on this slide, there's just some, some visual images to show some of the different techniques. So we've got some examples of flashcards, and as you can see, there's been lots of highlighting used here to help the student to retain the information. Mind maps, using diagrams and timelines. So, whatever subject it is that you're revising for, you might employ different methods just because of the nature of that subject. And also wanted to mention some useful apps to help you with your revision. There are loads of online tools available to help you, and I just wanted to mention a couple of these. You might have come across some of these before. You might already be using some of these with your subjects at school or college. But if not, that you might find them useful. I mentioned earlier on that it's really handy to get yourself a revision timetable, and sitting down and creating your own revision timetable in itself can be quite time consuming. So this website, Get Revising, it enables students to create a colour-coded revision timetable in literally minutes. So you can have that online, you could have it on your phone, but you could also print it off if you want. And the good thing about Get Revising is it will also send you reminders. So if you've put on your revision timetable that you're meant to be revising for biology at a particular time on a particular date, it will send you a reminder to tell you that you should be revising for biology. So if you're sat on the sofa watching TV, it's going to give you a bit of a motivator to get up and go and revise for biology. Seneca Learn, this is a great tool both for GCSE and A-level exams. It covers over 250 exam board courses, and it's got all sorts of different tests and tools on there. Some of those, you might have already come across. It might be that your tutors in school or college have already set you tests on Seneca, but if not, there are some that are already on there set up and ready to go. So if you want to test yourself after you've done some revision, just to see, where the gaps in your knowledge are, then that's a really useful tool as well. Gojimo Revision, which this is a useful quizzing app, covers 20 different A-level subjects. It gives you instant feedback, and it also, I think this is really useful, gives you detailed explanations of any errors that you've made. And again, these quizzes are specific to exam board specs, so it has all been mapped across, different syllabuses. And there's a really useful tracker which will identify for you as an individual if there are particular areas that you need to focus on. So in other words, areas where you're perhaps not as strong and therefore you need to focus your revision on. So that's a really useful tool. And then finally, Quizlet. This app allows you to make your own quiz flashcards to help test yourself, but there's already ones that are set up by other people who've also used it for this revision purpose. So if you get a chance, have a look at some of these apps. As I say, I think they're really, really useful to help you when planning your revision, and also could save you a lot of time. So just to summarise then, I think it's really important that you get yourself organised, particularly with a revision timetable. You could use the app that I've mentioned to help you do that. Make sure you start early. Try different techniques, whatever works for you, you go with that. Visual aids, mind maps, post-it notes, flashcards. There's so many different ways you can revise. And finally, just to say, make the most of the online tools that are available. It will save you time and it will help to support your revision. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope my tips and advice have been useful, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Sophie. What a fantastic introduction in terms of revision skills. I love the information about the apps, etc. Really, really, really handy session. No doubt lots of school groups over the coming months are going to be giving this video out to students to encourage them in terms of revision, etc. So really, really useful. One final thing, Sophie mentioned a brilliant bit of advice at the moment. We can obviously only tell you what the current picture is in England about exams and great advice about mocks. Sophie, the only thing to flag is this recording, if you're watching back on the recording, is on the 1st of December. So naturally, we can only tell you what we know at the moment. Our second speaker today is Farhana Begum. Farhana is a Go Higher West Yorkshire Outreach Officer, and Farhana is going to talk about the importance of a positive mindset when it comes to exams, but also looking at the academic side of life generally. So Farhana, I'll pass the floor to you, please.
Today I will be discussing a little bit about how you can have a positive mindset, whether it's in general or whether it's during exam time or just during this difficult time. Okay, so just to start it off, just want you to think about whether how you would describe your mindset. So would it be like a rock or a tree? Okay, obviously we can't answer that right now, but it's just a food for thought. Okay, so before I go into the positive mindset, it's really important to break down what is actually a mindset. Okay, so a mindset is something that we would say is a set of attitudes that an individual holds. Okay, so going back to the question I asked, whether your mindset is like a rock or a tree, we would say that someone who would describe their mindset as a rock would have like a fixed mindset. Okay, so that's someone who may not change their ways of thinking. They might not be able to cope as well under pressure. Whereas if you think your mindset is like a tree, we would describe that as a growth mindset. Okay, so you're able to adapt your ways of thinking. You might be able to cope a little bit more better under pressure. Okay, and it's the growth mindset that we're going to be focusing on today. So this workshop is all around how to manage your mind, okay, particularly during exam times when you're really stressed. And you know, when we're all stressed, we really are, so we feel like we're not in control of how we behave or how we think. So today I'm just going to be sharing some tips that can help you manage that, basically. Okay, when you're thinking about a growth mindset, we usually say it's either a rock for someone who has a fixed mindset or someone who's able to adapt. We would say that you would have a growth mindset, and it's the growth mindset that we're focusing on. So it's really important to manage how you basically think, particularly during stressful times. Okay, so how do you shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? Okay, so one of the things is it could be a really small thing that could make a massive difference. And one thing that we usually say is change your language. Okay, so usually when you're revising or you're doing a mock paper and you don't get the score that you hoped for, or day by day you're seeing your scores are going lower and lower, you might feel like, oh, I can't do this, or this is impossible, I'm just not good at it, I should just accept that I'm no longer good at it. But instead of doing that, you really need to challenge that mindset and really think that, you know what, I can do it. It is possible. This technique might not have worked, but if I do it in a different way, then it might work. So like what Sophie said, she described a couple of methods that you can use to revise. If one method doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're not good at that subject or you're not good enough to go to the exam. It just might mean that you have to change your method. Okay, so it's about figuring these things out. Okay, and we definitely don't say things like I can't be bothered. Okay, we need to change that language, and once we've changed that language, we start believing in ourselves a little bit more. Okay, so this is just a quote. I used to always use it when I was a student as well. Just because something worked, it doesn't mean that you failed. It's that you figured out possibly like 10,000 ways of perhaps something not working out. So you're always a step closer to reaching your goal. Okay, so some tips for a growth mindset. So like I said, we've touched up on positive mindset. So using that positive language is really, really important because what you say can influence how you think and how you feel. SMART goals, I'm just going to leave that out because we'll go into it a bit later on in the presentation. It's really important to be surrounded by like certain like networks, so supportive networks. So if you have a group of friends who are maybe in a similar boat as you, maybe feeling the same stress as you, maybe staying in that bubble might actually help because you can provide moral support for each other and give and share advice to each other that might actually help. So Definitely make the most of like your networks, you know, your parent, your carers as well. It's really important to make use of them because they can be a motivator. I know that when I was a student, I kept thinking, oh, how is my mum going to be a support network? But sometimes just giving that moral support or just that little encouragement that you can do it, sometimes that just helps you to engage with that positive language. Okay. And seek solutions, not problems. Okay. So sometimes when it comes to revision, it might not work out, but it doesn't mean that that's a problem within yourself or that there's actually an issue. It just might mean that depending on how you learn, there might be a better sort of method out there for you. So definitely look out for solutions. If this isn't working, what can I do differently to make the situation better? I'm not saying this is a problem, let's give up on it. Okay, so one of the practical tips that I can give you for having a positive mindset is being organized. Okay, so if you've got a certain goal in mind, using the SMART goal helps a lot. Okay, this is what loads of students might use, but you'll only find out if that works for you if you try it. So you might have already heard of the SMART goal, but SMART basically means S is for specific. So whatever goal you have in mind, try and break it down into small manageable chunks. Okay, so what exactly do you want to achieve? So in the context of revision, say you have an exam coming up in May, just a rough example, exactly what do you want to achieve from now until May? Okay, so ask yourself that and write down your answers on a piece of paper. Okay, so good goals are something that's realistic, clear, and it's definable. Okay, so make sure you break it down. Exactly what do you want? Sometimes in your head it makes sense, but on paper it's quite hard to break it down. But by breaking it down, it makes it more realistic for you. Secondly, measurable. Okay, so how will you know when you've achieved it? So is there going to be like a daily tracker, a weekly tracker that you're going to use to monitor? So in the context of revision, if there's a particular piece that you want to revise by, how will you track the distance that you've learned? Are you going to create a tracking sheet? If so, then maybe that's something you'll have to do. Is it achievable? So how can the goal be accomplished? Okay, so in order for you to revise that specific text, for example, as part of your revision, exactly what is your task? Are you going to sit there and just sit and memorize? Are you going to use some of the methods that Sophie maybe spoke about a little bit later on? Exactly, write it down. What is your task? How much are you going to try and do each day? Okay, and then it's relevant. It's really important to reflect on this as well. Why is this goal important to you? Why is it that you want to learn that piece of text by May? By reflecting on the relevance of it, that usually acts as a motivator because there is a reason behind why you're doing it. Because when you're stressed, sometimes you do ask yourself, why am I doing this? If I'm not enjoying it, why am I doing it? So by looking back at the SMART goals that you've set yourself during tough times, it helps sort of reinforce why you started it in the first place. And also time bound. So of course you want to achieve this goal, but we all need a deadline to achieve it by, because just generally in life, if you don't have a deadline, you're never going to come to it, you're never going to achieve it. So try and set yourself a timeline. When do you want to do it by? Each week, what is it that you want to achieve? And then usually if you've achieved it, that's your motivation to carry on. So this is a little technique that you can use to try and sort of make your goals more realistic, and also you can reflect back on it when times are tough. Okay, so benefits of a positive attitude. So by having a positive attitude, you're willing to try more things. Okay, it increases your confidence and you're motivated to do things. You won't be scared, you'll be willing to try it. Okay, you become more creative. So for example, if a method of revision isn't working, you won't see that as a negative thing. By having a positive attitude, you'll seek a solution. So you might try a different method out and you won't be afraid of it, and if that fails, then you'll carry on trying. That's what the benefit of a positive attitude is. It raises your aspirations. So how to keep positive attitude going? Okay, so keep a journal of achievements, because sometimes when you're feeling down, we tend to just focus on the things that we haven't done or we're not able to do. But equally at times like that, it's good to reflect back on your achievements. So keep a journal of your achievements, what you've done. Okay, this will help you also with your personal statements as well, when you come to write to it. But just generally as well, as a point of reflection, it's good to sort of look back on your achievements. Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? what's the probability that that will happen? Okay, so definitely ask yourself these reflective questions. Keep small achievable goals in mind. So like I said, the SMART goal helps you break the bigger goals into small realistic mini goals basically. So try and use a similar technique like that, or even the SMART goal structure, to try and put your goals in reality basically. And if you start to feel stuck or you're unsure about something, there's no harm in asking for help. Being confident enough to ask for help is also a positive attitude that, you know, some people find hard to grasp. So definitely, if you're using the techniques that we've discussed today, hopefully it'll give you the confidence to ask for help, because there's no harm in that. You'd rather have correct, up-to-date information to revise on, than sort of just second guess and just take the risk and it not be the right answer. These are just some sort of motivational quotes as well, because when you are going through a tough time, or for example, in the context of revision, sometimes students find it helpful to have like inspirational quotes as well, just to sort of boost their positive mindset. So these are possibly like some quotes that you can use, or like I said, there might be like other quotes that you use, but feel free to put them around your room to give you that daily gentle reminder of how a positive attitude can help you come a long way. So that's all for now. Just want to say thank you very much for tuning in.